hosted by Jason Bryan and providing the latest insights on telecoms trends from around the world. This is ROCCO Radio.
Welcome to The Big Interview, the podcast where we dive deep with the industry leaders and visionaries who are shaping the future of technology and business. I'm your host, Jason Bryan, and today we have a very special guest joining us. On this episode, we're thrilled to have Alan Murphy, the Vice President of Engineering at VOX Solutions. Alan has a wealth of experience in SMS technology, flash calls, product management, and the cutting-edge world of machine learning and AI. He's been at the forefront of innovation, driving forward-thinking solutions that are transforming how we communicate and manage technology products. So whether you're a tech enthusiast, product manager, or just curious about the future of communication technology, you won't want to miss this conversation. Stay tuned as we welcome Alan Murphy to The Big Interview. Let's get started.
So we have made, I would say, good progress in this as a company. We've brought attention to these particular issues over the last year or two. We've developed a solution for AIT. We work with our partners on trashing, but I think you know yourself that this is a general problem across the entire industry. So only by coming together, whether it's as various industry groups, MEF and others, I3 Forum, things like that, and agreeing how we can all go forward with this, it's going to continue to be a problem. But again, being in this industry a long time, going to GSMA Fraud and Security Group, seeing the continuous discussion about even like voice issues, CLI spoofing, things like this, you try to mitigate these techniques as much as you can. You try to make an environment where people are not benefiting from doing these things, but they take time.
It's with great pleasure that I'm here with Alan Murphy from VOX Solutions. Alan, how are you today?
Hey, Jason. All good. Delighted to be talking to you again. It's been a little while.
Yeah, but always a pleasure to hear your voice and to know unique perspective on the industry. And especially now you're also working for VOX Solutions, which I think is a company a lot of people are aware of and has made some interesting impacts into the industry. How is business in VOX Solutions these days?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a company that has been growing in the last couple of years. Really impressive growth. Just, the last 2 or 3 years. They're a firm favorite now at a lot of the events where we get a lot of traction with M&Os and partners. And I'm pleased to say that now in 2024, we're seeing the continuation of that growth. I came into VOX a couple of months ago. One of my kind of roles is to help the company scale and, look at the processes and technology that we have in order for us to scale into all of the markets we're looking to get into, specifically places like Latin America, Africa, where we're seeing huge traction. So, it's a very, very busy time for us all here in VOX.
Yeah, we have been monitoring how VOX Solutions has been evolving in different regions of the world, and it's quite impressive, I have to say. You're hosting in Bali, in September. So doing a lot of interesting initiatives which are coming up. And I think some definite steps to evolve the industry. What would you say is a particularly innovative solution that you guys are developing right now?
Well, I mean, that's one of the things that drew me to VOX in the first place. The innovative culture. There's multiple awards won. Look, I know we all see a lot of awards for a lot of companies in the industry, but specifically with VOX, the likes of the Flash Call solution and AIT solution, over the last couple of years, they have really kind of built that innovative team in-house. And, it's obviously a testament to the team that we've achieved tier 1 now in the ROCCO report in SMS monetization. So I think the guys are all really proud of that, although I can't take much credit or be associated with that too much because I've only joined recently, but it really shows that kind of passion in the team to deliver these innovative solutions. Our focus now really is, as I mentioned, kind of getting our current systems, messaging firewalls so we can protect a mobile operator from, not just optimizing monetization, but also moving into potentially other areas there to help the operator monetize and add more value. Extend our flash call solution as well. And we've had a huge amount of success with that, bringing in the machine learning aspects that we have, optimizing those to reduce the amount of manual effort that people have to make in these, double checking everything, huge amount of effort that mobile operators themselves have to go through. And then, as I mentioned, AIT protection. This was a complete eye-opener to me when I came into VOX. Everybody's aware of it, but are you aware of actually how damaging it can be and has been for mobile networks? In one operator, I think we saw an 8-fold increase in SMS traffic. So your SMS traffic is at 100. We saw 800 messages coming through.
Wow. It's incredible.
Sorry. I tried to kind of describe it. 8 times the normal traffic of SMS was coming through. And by applying the AIT solution, we were able to reduce that because there was a lot of complaints for that network. And, there was even one specific story on that, Jason, that just blew my mind. One guy received what was an AIT message, and it was from a popular dating app to kind of get their one-time passcode. Mm-hmm. And of course, the wife saw this, and I think it led to almost a divorce. They complained to the operator about this. These are the sorts of real-life stories you start getting when you start looking into these problems. And it's great to be able to have solutions to these now. And as I said, my first goal here in VOX is to scale up our solutions, get the processes ready so that we can cover more of our partners, but also now look to what happens next. So we're protecting the network against bypass on SMS, grey routes, inboxes, all of that sort of stuff. This is the sort of thing that's been around for a long time, but how can we do it quicker? How can we do it more effectively? And I know we probably will talk about machine learning because that's obviously the big topic, especially when you're talking to an engineer. But going forward, these are the sorts of solutions that will be our mainstay. And then as we go forward in the future, we really want to push our OpEx model and what we can bring to a mobile operator to help monetization across messaging and voice, international, national, all of those channels, because our focus is absolutely on the operators, is absolutely on making them money. And there's quite a few cool new things coming up. We are looking at a lot of different potential solutions for operators, but I can't really get into that just now. But you will see, hopefully when we get to Bali, we can unveil a few more of those.
No, it all sounds extremely impressive. We know AIT is a huge issue in ROCCO. We had a hackathon last year as well, which was trying to focus on that topic because we recognize that this is legitimate. You see a lot of people talking about it, but operators are also talking specifically about what they see as something they haven't seen in the industry since SMS started. And so you're right, it's incredible. There was a slight uplift in SMS usage over a COVID period, but not like this. So it's something that everybody's conscious of, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, there's only so much a technical solution can go to. We all know in this industry that there are various competing interests on the brand side, on the aggregator side, and the operator side that kind of help drive these types of things. Once you, as I said, protect an operator from grey routes, from SIN boxes, from other mechanisms of SMS messages being delivered on their network, generally you see a rise in flash calls. Once you start blocking flash calls, then you start seeing a rise in AIT or SMS trashing. And this is what we've all seen across the network. And the guys in the middle, the aggregators who may need to hit those margins, they may be tempted to go down that route. And I think a lot of us have seen this in the market. It's all fun and games. But obviously, having been in the industry for a very long time, we've seen a lot of this before. You put in a technique to solve a problem, and there's an incentive for the attackers and the fraudsters to get over that cat and mouse game, to find new techniques, new exploits. And as I say, I've been building firewalls and signaling firewalls and all sorts of protection security systems for many years. And I believe it'll continue on like this as we move forward now into RCS and other technologies.
Yeah, some very interesting topics I think we're going to get into a little bit later in this podcast as well regarding, but in terms of SMS, you say on your website, capitalize on the growth of A2P SMS. That has certainly been the case for a long time, but as we've been alluding to here, in general, the view seems to be that SMS appears to be declining. Is that your opinion as well?
Yeah, that's a very good point. And it's something that we all in the industry have to take account of, that the traffic volume for A2P SMS has been decreasing recently. I guess maybe from a revenue perspective, maybe if the revenues are a little bit higher because of price increases or things like that, maybe in general, the market isn't, from a dollar perspective, lower yet. The traffic is certainly starting to shift. And look, it's not a surprise to anybody, really. To be perfectly honest, as I said, starting in SMS back in 2001, 2002, when MMS was out, I didn't even think SMS would reach the end of the decade back then. So that the fact that it's lasted this long definitely was always a surprise. And what you don't do is write SMS off anyway. It will be around for 10, 15 years. But obviously, you're right to point out that the market has shifted, the market is changing. And I think a lot of that has been down to the types of messages being sent. The majority and bulk of those are one-time passcodes, are, validation messages, verification that the subscriber is who they say they are. And as we see different channels to kind of affect this, different means and mechanisms for doing this, that, surely that has to take, that has taken effect on the traffic.
And I think you raise a very good point there about SMS and its uses. And of course, I did a podcast some time ago now with someone very close to African communities, and they were talking about how fundamental SMS was to how they communicate, because they didn't have any access to data of any kind. So they relied upon SMS. We have to understand, well, some operators are thinking about 6G. There's a lot of operators still looking at 3G and optimizing that and just getting into 4G. It's incredible how diverse and fragmented actually mobile operators' approaches are globally. So with a view to SMS monetization, for these kind of marginalized communities, it must be fundamental to have that service clean and working correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. Ultimately, the biggest draw for SMS was its ubiquitous reach. You could access anybody in the world who was connected with a mobile phone. It didn't matter about the handset. Didn't matter whether you had a specific app, a different operating system. You had, or even, as you mentioned, high bandwidth internet connection or anything like that. You had the ability to contact and interact with people. And as we transitioned in the early 2000s into using SMS for marketing, for contact, it superseded, it had a much higher rate than, say, emails for people looking at it and engaging. Phone calls, who answers their phones nowadays? Everybody expects it to come by text or that. All these other media have had less of an impact. And as you say, for marginalized communities, for communities where they don't have access to the latest handsets and apps and fancy gadgets, this is a lifeline. In terms of how this kind of proceeds, well, one thing I would say firstly is the SMS monetization, this industry that we're in, for all its faults, has allowed this. CPaaS providers offering a mechanism to contact all these people by enterprises across the world. You're not dependent on just your local operator. You can go to a global provider for this. The way the industry has emerged really has helped this, I would say. That being said, as a 44-year-old Irish man here in my Western democracy, I probably can't really speak to the exact experiences of some of these communities. But in my role developing these technologies, interacting with mobile operators around the world, I know it has made a huge impact, and I hope that it will continue to do so. And I hope that SMS will continue to be available to these communities over time. The replacement of this, though, whether it's RCS or other apps, that is something that we need to think about. Sunsetting SMS, I don't think is really going to happen as quickly as people think. So I wouldn't be too worried about it happening in the next couple of years. It will always be there. The long tail of SMS, perhaps.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that right now we know in the industry, in terms of standardization, they're talking about SMS applications over 5G. So it's not going away. There's definitely still a plan to develop the SMS business. And I think what's interesting these days is a lot of focus on artificial intelligence. I don't know if you went to the Mobile World Congress, but like 99% of the businesses there were talking about AI. And you alluded to machine learning and what you guys are doing there. How do you think artificial intelligence and machine learning, what part do they play in optimizing SMS? Is it possible to optimize it further in terms of monetization?
Yes, absolutely. As an engineer looking at what capabilities we have now with machine learning versus where we were 10 or 15 years ago, it's night and day. There was no way I would have been able to write a computer program to do some of the things we can ask AI to do now we can take a message, we can get AI to look at it. We can ask things about that message in a multilingual way that can derive intelligence. It can get information about this, the content, the intent, in such a way that it adds hugely to business intelligence. It helps us detect bypass, gray routes, helps us optimize routing, provide more commercial models, like, for example, say, like use case pricing. We can use it to determine, for example, if there is a local aggregator or a local partner of the MNO that's sending text messages, but, they're actually international text messages, so they're trying to bypass with a lower price. These are all made possible now. And not just because it has the ability to do these things. When the likes of ChatGPT came out, people thought, hey, why can't I just ask ChatGPT if this message is spam, for example? It's not as easy as that. You can't apply this on a per message basis. You can't, it doesn't always give you the right answer. It's not accurate a lot of the times. But if you ask it some basic things, if you can get your machine learning model trained up, optimized, especially for the different markets, different languages, it can provide that kind of enriched intelligence that allows you then to optimize your monetization strategy. It optimizes the routing of your SMS messaging or messaging in general. It can identify these problems that are happening. We can use it for regulatory shaft analysis, or even some of the regulators where they ban marketing messages after a certain amount of time. So they can protect your business by avoiding either fines or being disconnected from delivering messages to subscribers. I think machine learning also allows you to be more efficient, because in a lot of cases, this was done by humans. They could only focus on the top, whatever number of campaigns going through. This way, we can have a 24/7 employee look at all of these things continuously, give the feedback directly, and take action. I think in one way or another, we've been using machine learning in this industry since probably 2009, 2010. There's some very simplistic models back then. And the difference between what we did back then, it was more kind of statistical. The models we use nowadays with deep learning, with all that are more semantic, meaning that we can get an understanding of what's happening. And that's the big shift that we have. And that's the thing that we want to take advantage of, because in doing this, we can get it to understand what's happening, these message flows. We can take that information and then take action. And the quicker we take action, the quicker we can, as I say, block bypass routes or optimize the routing, or, as I said, the regulatory aspect of it can take effect without us having to have humans do this. But at the end of the day, there are challenges to that. There's the scale. Even, I'm sure you've probably used ChatGPT and other deep learning or LLM techniques. They take a lot of resources. The accuracy of it, obviously, it can be a bit questionable. There's also the aspects of, say, local knowledge, things that you need to know about the local market. You can't just kind of call out to ChatGPT and data privacy, of course. And then, of course, in this industry, as soon as you put in a protection or you put in a new technique to help, do this optimization, anybody who attempts to bypass will start finding new techniques to get past it, as we call it in the industry, concept drift.
Yeah.
So we'll always need humans. We'll always need analysts. We'll always need this to kind of make sure the system is working. Up until recently, I probably would have said automatically blocking messages on the basis of what an AI or an ML system tells you would not be a very good idea and would not really be possible. But I'm not of that opinion at this point in time. I think things are getting good enough, and there's enough protections in how we're developing and how we're pushing forward that this is a reality now, where maybe 5 years ago I wouldn't have done this.
Fantastic to hear. An idea the other day regarding AI, actually, and I thought it would be really good if I had an AI join me in meetings to remind me of what I said in previous meetings and to remind me of what objectives I'm supposed to meet. I think it could be very handy for all kinds of businesses. Yeah,
I mean, this is where we're heading, though, I think. And if we brought that specifically to, like, nowadays, if you've got the latest handsets with the chips that are more compatible with, again, these new AI models, you can think to yourself that as a vendor who has put in and as an engineer who has created firewalls to identify even, like, say, spam, if you go into, say, a gym and you inquire about, hey, how much does it cost? And they take your number. And I'm a member of the gym, and they decide to send a campaign to both of us advertising, 10% off or whatever. If you receive it, you're probably thinking, this is spam. Like, I mean, I didn't ask them to do this. Whereas if I receive that, I'm thinking, well, I'm a member. This is great. I get 10% off. And ultimately, spam is one of those unsolvable problems. You can never solve it. It's bulk and unsolicited. But how do you know at the point of the network whether it is or not? But going to your point, if that agent, that AI agent is present in your handset and understands who you are, what you do, you're a member of this gym, these are your preferences. When that message is received on your handset, that ultimately it can then be used to identify what is spam for you. It can be used to take the communication in, analyze it, and it'll be your personal assistant to help you with those things, to identify phishing and fraud and things like that. And I think that's ultimately where we'll go. It won't mean there will be an end to, protections within the network. But I think ultimately with end-to-end encryption, with other kind of barriers to doing that in the network, that we will need to have this ability on handsets at the point of where the humans are receiving these communications.
It's really exciting. I mean, it's exciting to think about the potential, but there's also, this deep concern, I guess, also in your industry, especially that the fraudsters also have access to this technology. So what are they going to do to elude being discovered? So the need continues, right?
It is. It's again the cat and mouse games. I mean, even taking again as an example, if I'm sending a message, hey, Jason, do you want to buy Viagra? I can ask my AI, give me 1,000 different ways of saying this. And content filters and things like that would have a very difficult time keeping up with all of those different permutations. Whereas if you have an AI protection, you can then identify the intent of the message. And based on the intent, you can then block anything that looks like this is the type of call to action, or this is the sort of message and sort of campaign that's being sent. As I say, when an attacker has an incentive, especially a monetary incentive to get through, they don't care about the medium. They don't care about how they reach you, as long as they can reach you. And they'll use any of the techniques they can to get past any protections, including, as you say, unfortunately, AI.
When we think about media and we think about how this is evolving, a good example is RCS. Do you think RCS then will face similar levels of fraud that we've seen on SMS, or is it a whole new universe of protection and monetization?
That's a very good question. And I don't know if I'm one of those pessimistic people or not, but I absolutely believe it will be ripe for fraud, not because of any inherent structural problem with RCS as a protocol or the ecosystem around it, but because as things shift from SMS to RCS and maybe other channels, the attackers will adapt. They always have in the past, so there's nothing that tells me that they won't in the future. You mentioned about 5G earlier. In analyzing 5G, as you mentioned, SMS is present in 5G, so it's kind of a little bit strange to see technology that's 30 odd years old present in the latest specifications, which is all web-based, as you know, and things like that. The complexity of 5G offers more points to exploit the protocol than previous protocols. Even though previous protocols were not safe by design, 5G is a bit more safe by design. But because of the complexity, it offers a kind of a larger surface of attack. When you look at the newer technologies coming out, the likes of RCS, and you look at the complexity behind that, you may also see a similar issue. When you take into account encryption, where potentially end-to-end encryption, P2P RCS is not, you can't even look at the content. How do we put a firewall in the middle to identify that this is really a P2P person on the other side doing this? And do we even have control over that? But as I say, the general point here is that I believe, yes, we will see the same or similar levels of fraud on RCS as we do in SMS.
In general, regarding RCS, and I'm just throwing this question at you, do you expect growth in that area? What I'm hearing is a move away from apps. Right. So the interface between customer and brand or enterprise is not necessarily going to be an app anymore. It could be an RCS message. And because you can do so much from an RCS message, it suggests that we're actually moving in a different direction now. And it's hard to get your head around, right? Because we've had apps for many years now.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I think most people would probably be delighted that they don't have to install an airline app just to check things. And, they can use RCS to interact with enterprises, and enterprises themselves are going to be delighted with that because they won't have to worry about, going through the whole App Store process. Instead, they can communicate and iterate their communication style with the customer far more quickly through the likes of RCS. So I think it is a win-win. That's one of the real positives of RCS. And I know, obviously, say you can verify the sender as well, which is one of the things that's missing from SMS. And we all see the smishing and fraud attacks that occur at the moment, at the post office or DHL or whatever it is. But for RCS, I think that these are huge advantages. The question is, how fast will RCS take over? We know, obviously, Apple will open up on RCS later this year. I've heard that they will also do RBM, which is great because as an iPhone user, I don't have RCS messages. It's all kind of iMessage or back to SMS. So I think there's a huge opportunity there. But the question is, how big will that become and how quickly will that evolve? The ecosystem itself is obviously a little bit more complicated than SMS. You don't just go to CPaaS and just do this. I mean, you can, and then, and fall back to SMS if it doesn't get delivered. But we need to see how this will evolve over the next kind of 6 months or year, how Apple play with it. Obviously, Google have relative monopoly on RCS, both on the handset app and the infrastructure. So where do the MNOs play here? Where does regulation come in? Sure, all of this has to be kind of seen to how it will play out. But absolutely, it's a huge opportunity for enterprises and brands to enrich their communication and engagement with their customers. And hopefully that will lead to, as you say, a reduction in apps, but also a benefit for the user experience of subscribers.
It's going to be interesting to see how it evolves. And I think, like we've just been touching on, one of the big topics will be around fraud and how that can be mitigated and how we don't suffer from the same problems that we've had with SMS. And because there has been this feeling that maybe operators have been offering SMS services, but it's something that's in their portfolio already. They don't need to do very much to make it into a service. Whereas with RCS, it's going to be a deeper commitment, a deeper relationship with the enterprise customers. It's going to be a different ballgame altogether, I would say.
Yeah, that's true. It seems at the moment that they're outsourcing all of this to Google, to Jibe. And as an operator, yes, I mean, your core function is connectivity, but you also need to be able to monetize what you have. And as revenues from SMS start declining and there is a shift over to RCS or other OTT channels, what are you going to do about it? And this is a question I think a lot of operators are looking at now, because at the end of the day, outsourcing that to Google, who, we all use Google every day. Once they have that kind of critical mass, it's going to be very difficult for operators to get that back or to leverage their position to get that back.
Indeed. It's interesting space to watch. Back to the main topic of the podcast, which is really around AIT. Obviously, we've said operators globally are subject to this as a rising challenge, and SMS trashing as well. How can VOX make a real difference in this space, would you say?
I think VOX have made quite a big difference in this. If you think about, like I mentioned earlier, the innovative solutions that VOX have already provided, identifying a couple of years ago the rise of flash calls and how they would circumvent SMS messages being used for OTP. But also talking about artificial traffic, because, as I mentioned, if we block grey routes, we block inboxes, we block flash calls or monetize them, then what's left for the guys in the middle to kind of increase their margins? So you start seeing this increase of both artificial traffic and SMS trashing. So we've developed an artificial inflation of traffic product. It has been deployed. It's been used. I gave the example earlier of the increase in AIT in a particular operator that VOX has an exclusive with. We saw huge spikes of traffic, 8 times the normal SMS traffic, and applied our tool. There was a huge number of complaints as well coming in from subscribers, receiving messages they never requested and things like that. And the complaints went down by over 90%. It was really, really satisfying to see that this was the result of that system. But I think, until there's a concerted effort across the entire kind of ecosystem where there are those competing interests, AIT is just something that we're all going to have to deal with, whether it's with some technical measures, but, commercial measures and kind of all bandying together to see how we can do this, whether it's having more direct or one-hop connections between enterprises and the operators, or reducing the overall kind of monetary gain that people can have who are in the middle, who are perpetrating this. It's going to be very difficult to kind of squash completely. For SMS trashing, we do testing. We work with our operators and we SIM cards and ways of testing to ensure that when these messages are going through, that we see that they are getting delivered. And between that and customer complaints from our partners, from our operator partners, we can determine if there's any real level of trashing happening in the middle. And of course, we then work with the operator to investigate upstream where it could be causing a problem. But that's a routing issue. It's not something, because if we don't even see the message in the first place, we can't do much about it. So we do depend on our testing infrastructure for that. So we have made, I would say, good progress in this as a company. We've brought attention to these particular issues over the last year or two. We've developed a solution for AIT. We work with our partners on trashing, but I think you know yourself that this is a general problem across the entire industry. So only by coming together, whether it's as various industry groups, MEF and others, I3 Forum, things like that, and agreeing how we can all go forward with this, it's going to continue to be a problem. But again, being in this industry a long time, going to GSMA Phone Security Group, seeing the continuous discussion about even like voice issues, CLI spoofing, things like this, you try to mitigate these techniques as much as you can. You try to make an environment where people are not benefiting from doing these things, but they take time.
Well, Alan, thank you so much for your feedback and your insights. I think they're extremely valuable. We're looking forward very much to Bali, those people who are attending, or maybe we shouldn't call it Bali, but the Indonesian meeting.
I heard that was the technique to get approval for travel. Call it Indonesia.
It's always great to have a conversation with you. And I hope that we meet face to face over there in Indonesia. It's indeed going to be a very exciting meeting, I think. It's going to bring a different crowd to the normal WOZ crowd, I think. A lot more regional diversity. So really looking forward to that. And looking forward to meeting more of the VOX team and seeing how that's going to go. So thank you so much for your insights again, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jason. Have a good one, and I will see you hopefully in Bali.
Bye-bye.
Bye.